A lot of the time, the NBA draft is theoretical. Teams at the top of the lottery are enamored with ceilings, upside, potential, whatever you want to call it, and honestly, that strategy works quite often. Jaylen Brown was super raw at Cal, Darius Garland only played 5 games at Vanderbilt, and Anthony Edwards had a ton of flaws as a prospect at Georgia. Still, all those guys ended up being top 5 picks and NBA All-Stars, so clearly this upside thing can work, at least near the top of the draft. But what about the guys where the production isn't theoretical? The guys who maybe lack the ceiling of the super exciting prospects, but still manage to contribute at a high level in a variety of ways. They have their fingerprints all over any game they play, they can fit into a variety of roles, and they're usually comfortable being their team's focal point. And while they aren't typically seen as high-end NBA draft prospects, there's a legit history of them carving out key positions in the league. Let me introduce you to the 15-5-5 Club. The 15-5-5 Club is an exclusive group of players with only 3 requirements needed to join. In collegiate competition, you must have scored 15 points per game, grabbed 5 rebounds per game, and dished out 5 assists per game. Despite its rather basic qualifications, the list of members is pretty short. Since 2000, only 78 players have found their way into the club, and there have actually been several years where no one cracked the list. Members of the 15-5-5 Club include solid NBA players like Greivis Vasquez, Norris Cole, Gary Payton II, Delon Wright, Tyrese Haliburton, Dosunmu, and Elfrid Payton, and it's actually also produced some top 5 draft picks as well, in guys like Chris Dunn, Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, D'Angelo Russell, and John Morant. In 2023, one member of the club was drafted in 6'2" Penn State guard Jalen Pickett, and while he had a modest rookie season and only appeared in 27 games for the Denver Nuggets, he played incredibly well for the Grand Rapids Gold, Denver's G League affiliate, as he averaged 17 points, 8.5 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. So I'd look for him to get more NBA run in the near future. Typically, the members of the 15-5-5 Club don't turn out to be NBA superstars. They're usually on the older side and have notable shortcomings as prospects, but if you're looking for a good bet on a solid rotation player, then these guys could be worth studying, especially as you enter the second round. It's in this context that 3 members of the 15-5-5 Club entered the 2024 NBA Draft, and with none of them being projected to go in the first round, they all represent interesting options for teams picking in the back half of the draft. So let's examine this trio and see how they can each provide value in the NBA. So to be clear, 4 players entered the 2023-24 season in the 15-5-5 Club. Tristan Newton, the point guard for the 2-time defending national champion UConn Huskies. Dillon Jones, a 6'5" swingman for Weber State who won Big Sky Player of the Year this season. Vonterius Woolbright, a 6'5" scoring and rebounding machine from Western Carolina who earned SoCon Player of the Year honors. And Seton Hall's Kadari Richmond, who isn't in the NBA draft this year, but was perhaps the most highly sought after player in the transfer portal and will be playing at St. John's for his final year of eligibility. But let's focus on the 3 guys in the draft, because while they all share similar statistical qualifications, they play different styles and had totally different contexts surrounding them. Starting with Tristan Newton, he was probably the most point guard-like of the 3. Being the driver of UConn's offense the last 2 seasons, Newton did an admirable job of playing within the rhythm of Dan Hurley's elite system. Newton always had the game on a string at UConn. He never looked sped up, he didn't compound mistakes, and he was really good at knowing what the Huskies needed and when. His 6.2 assists per game were second in the Big East, only behind Marquez Tyler Kolek, who by the way finished 2 rebounds short of joining the 15-5-5 Club this year, and his 2.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio is also outstanding given his usage rate of 26%. His best quality in my opinion is being able to organize teammates and put them in advantageous positions to score. He makes precise passes that lead teammates to easy shots and finishes, and he just knows where everyone is all the time. These passes aren't that flashy by any means, but they're effective and correctly timed. Watch here how he waits until the exact right moment to fire this pass to Alex Caravan, who gets an easy layup. Newton's ability to get downhill off drives is also very sound. He's not blisteringly quick or athletic, but he does have phenomenal timing when it comes to attacking gaps in the defense and changing speeds. His acceleration ability is really good, which can catch defenses off guard and lead to easy kickouts. And he's also solid at coming to a stop where he can survey the floor and make the right decision, whether it's a pass or a shot. Here, Newton does a really nice job of playing with control off the ball screen before getting into the middle of the lane, drawing 2 with a unique step cadence and finding Donovan Clingan for a dunk. Newton's not particularly efficient when it comes to scoring, but he does some things well to the point where I think he can carve out an NBA role. His float game is very good, for example, as while he wasn't really asked to do it a whole lot at UConn, he was still able to get to his spots and finish consistently with nice displays of touch, and that's important because he has a lot to prove as a shooter. During his 5-year collegiate career, Newton only shot over 35% from three-point range once, and this past season he only knocked down 32.1% of his attempts. Despite the shot mechanics looking clean and compact, and never shooting below 80% from the free throw line for his career, Newton could just never really find the range from distance. Despite the numbers though, I do still believe there is some hope for Newton as a shooter. For one thing, even though his percentages weren't great, that didn't deter him from taking threes. He actually took 5.5 3-pointers a game this past season, which was the most he had taken throughout his career, so there was never a lack of confidence or an element to where he stalled UConn's offense by passing up open shots. And when he was open, he was actually pretty passable, as he hit 44% of his unguarded catch-and-shoot threes this year per synergy. So while he did struggle when it came to creating off the dribble, I do think there's a base level of competency there that could be built upon. It's also worth noting that Newton was pretty streaky as a shooter. There were some games where he seemingly couldn't hit anything from deep, but he also had 22 games this year where he hit 2 or more, including an absolute eruption at Allen Fieldhouse where he drained 6 of them. What I also like about Newton is that he isn't solely a ball-centric guard. He's very comfortable moving without the ball operating as a cutter and a screener, which suggests that he could play either backcourt position, assuming the shot can work itself out. Watch here how Newton will first come off a down screen set by Donovan Clingan before sprinting into a handoff action, which then leads to him coming off a UCLA screen for an easy layup. While I wouldn't classify Newton as an elite defender, I don't think he's someone that actively hurts you on that end either. He'll help out on the glass, he can rotate on time, and can turn up his ball pressure in spurts, but at the same time, I'd like to see him get a bit quicker at the point of attack. Still, at 6'5", he presents as a versatile piece that teams could mold into a variety of ways, which makes Newton's NBA value even more enticing. Moving on to Dillon Jones, he's a unique type of player who spent the last 4 years at Weber State, and while his team could never get to the NCAA tournament during his time there, that didn't stop him from putting up some of the most impressive numbers in the country. As a senior, Jones averaged around 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists per game, displaying a versatile skill set that should make him the first player drafted out of Weber State since the Portland Trailblazers took Damian Lillard in 2012. With Jones, the most impressive thing is the passing. While I wouldn't classify him as a traditional point guard like Newton, he still boasts perhaps some of the best distribution skills in the entire draft. We're talking live dribble passes with both hands, look-offs to the roller, transition strikes, skips. Jones can do it all, and he leverages this with a stocky 6'5" frame that catches defenses off balance. Like Newton, Jones is awesome at speed control. He doesn't look like a handling threat at first, but then he can immediately burst into silky dribble combo moves like it's nothing and get to where he wants to go. Watch here how Jones will come off a ball screen and pause for a moment before bursting into a 1-2 dribble move, which gets him into solid post position where he utilizes a nice half spin to get his defender on his back, and then drop the ball off to his teammate for an easy layup. Jones also has the ability of just finding ways to score. He's not that effective of a shooter and isn't a great vertical athlete, but his understanding of angles combined with his comfort when it comes to finishing in odd ways makes up for that. Despite only hitting 32% of his threes this year, Jones actually is a very solid mid-range shooter off the dribble, as he can break guys down with the handle and create space with his natural lean back. Jones can also get downhill in pick and roll settings, and this leads to a variety of scoring opportunities around the basket that he can take advantage of. He's also shown some capability of playing in the short roll and in the post, which could be a unique way to mitigate his shooting deficiencies. The rebounding is another thing that must be discussed too, as he has a great knack for rising up and coming down with contested boards, and because he's a comfortable ball handler, he can start his own fast break and beat defenses down to floor. He's really good at setting up a wide base on the block, which makes him hard to move around, and he also eats space in the air because of how wide he situates his arms when going for rebounds. This makes him a real threat on the glass despite only being 6'5", and it's just another unorthodox way that he can provide value, especially defensively, where he can sometimes look underwhelming laterally. Even with some movement concerns though, Jones does do enough on that end thanks to his nose for the ball, which led to him posting an impressive steal rate of over 3%, and his instincts, which limit off-ball mistakes. Jones isn't a typical NBA player, but he excels so much around the margins that I think he can carve out a specialty role in the right environment. Rounding out this trio is Vonterius Woolbright. Woolbright started his career playing 2 seasons at Lawson State Community College before making the move to Cullowhee, where he blew up in his 3rd season as a Catamount, averaging 21.2 points, 12 rebounds, and 5.6 assists per game for a very good Western Carolina team that won 22 games and beat squads like Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, and McNeese State in the process. Woolbright was the unquestioned engine for Western Carolina. He had the 3rd highest offensive usage rate in the country per Bart Torvik, and he was also 6th nationally in defensive rebounding rate too. And if that doesn't impress you, Woolbright also had a whopping 5 triple-doubles this season, which was tied for the most in the country with Utah guard Davon Smith, and before those two, no player had posted 5 or more triple-doubles in a single season since BYU's Kyle Collinsworth in 2016. I mentioned how Newton and Jones are both unique prospects, but Woolbright takes that to a totally different level because it's downright impossible to describe his effectiveness. He's only 6'5", but he played at pretty much every position for Western Carolina. He's a woefully poor shooter to the point where he even airballed a free throw. He doesn't finish well at the rim, and he's not particularly impactful on defense. And from the looks of it, all of those are disqualifiers for an NBA prospect, as indicated by his lack of invite to the draft combine last month. Still, Woolbright just has a way of producing that doesn't make sense given his limitations. He's an incredibly patient driver, often making second efforts to get downhill and score. He's comfortable playing with his back to the basket too, as his post-up numbers are pretty solid for someone his size, and he also grades out really well as a cutter, even though he didn't really do it that often because he pretty much always had the ball. There also might not be a bigger discrepancy in the country between a player's pick-and-roll scoring and pick-and-roll passing than Woolbright's. Because of how limited he is as a shooter, Woolbright's ability to score using ball screens is somewhat stifled. Defenses will sag off him and take away driving lanes, and it just makes it tough for him to operate. On the flip side of that though, Woolbright is amazing as a passer in these settings, even with defenses not respecting the shooting. He hits rollmen with either hand and rifles passes to the exact spot needed for them to finish, and he's also really solid when it comes to finding weak side shooters for open jumpers. His patience and off-kilter pace control makes him a tough cover, and Woolbright uses that to his advantage as he's really good at recognizing defensive rotations and exploiting those openings. Woolbright's rebounding production was also historic, as his 12 boards per game were 3rd in the country, and they actually registered as the most by a player 6'5" or shorter since Clinton Cobb brought down 12.1 per game for Texas Pan American, which is now Texas Rio Grande Valley, in 1982. His unprecedented rebounding production was spurred by an elite combination of persistence, anticipation, and vertical explosion, and it also helped that he was pretty much given free rein to pursue misses and then start to break on offense. But still, this could have been a necessity, as Western Carolina's typical starting 5 consisted of 3 guys listed at 5'8", 6'1", and 6'2" respectively. And it's this type of versatility and spot production that Woolbright could provide to NBA teams. And he said it best.
I just try to do whatever it takes to win the game. If it's for me to score, pass, rebound, I'm going to do that.
So, each of Newton, Jones, and Woolbright have shown that they can impact the game in a variety of ways, despite their well-established weaknesses. And in an NBA that values versatility, I think that matters. They aren't going to be stars, and they're each far from perfect as prospects, but if you're looking for guys who can just solidly contribute to winning basketball, then the 15-5-5 club might be worth looking into. Because at the end of the day, sometimes you just gotta bet on production, no matter how unorthodox it may be. Thanks so much for watching, and give me your thoughts below.